Just remember that I didn't share last week's recording. I'll try do that today. So anyone who can not really remind us, share the understanding of what Wazuh is, what it does.
Yes.
Oh, please proceed, James.
It's like an open source security platform that provides threat detection, and it has tools that run on endpoints to correct the security related data.
Kabisa. Very good, very good. A lady, please explain your understanding of what Wazuh does. Ikiwa ni ngumu sana, which I know definitely it's not. Everyone in this call has been doing an amazing job. You can rephrase what James has just said. Catherine, Beckley, Sidonia, in your own words, what is Wazuh? What does it do?
Wazuh is it's like a security detection that helps organizations to to monitor or protect their IT security infrastructure. Yeah, so basically that was in organized intrusion detection. We looked at all that just basically help organizations with their security. Or more even what's to happen in the organization with respect to security.
Thank you, Beckley. Struggle to hear some bits and pieces, but yes, more or less your definition is right. So, just to reiterate what James and Beckley have said, and also just to tie in what you've been doing, we today, as of today, more or less, I'm 99% confident. More or less, all of us know how Windows stores its events. We know Windows Event Viewer. We know Windows Events. We also know SysMon. If we go to Linux, we also have a good, I'm hoping, from an interaction, I'm pretty confident, we also know how Linux does its log management. So everything we have been talking about has actually been aspects of log management. So understanding how Windows, Linux create events, store those events, and going a step further to understand how, as an analyst, how we can actually identify those specific events, how we can identify those specific folders or files that contain those events, and go a step further and process them and be able to do investigation and pick detections from those particular events. We have been using more or less manual processes, which in most modern enterprises doesn't scale. Now, scaling here means that you can't use the approach you've been using continuously on day-to-day basis, organizational wide. It's going to take too much time. It's going to slow you down. To solve that issue, we have tools like Wazuh. Wazuh, as you have all said, is basically a tool that helps organizations be able to detect threats. From a professional point of view, Wazuh falls under a set of tools that are called SIEM, Security Information Event Management. So let's look for what is a SIEM. So SIEM, pronounced SIEM, yes, pronounced SIEM combines both security information management and security event management into one security management system, blah blah blah. Microsoft will do a very amazing explanation of what a SIEM is. IBM also has something, so create some time, just Google what a SIEM is. Wazuh is only one type of SIEM. We still have other types of SIEMs. So if we search for types of SIEM vendors, so SIEM solutions. Now you'll get a list of all of these. So we have Splunk, we have Logarithm, we have IBM QRadar, Microsoft Azure, Securonix, hizo zote. And more or less these are commercial SIEMs. So let's see if we'll have Wazuh here. High probability it might not be here, but Wazuh rides on top of Elasticstack. We'll still talk about that, and Elasticstack is here. So going back to the SIEM. When you talk of SIEMs, we have commercial SIEMs and open source SIEMs. So types of, let's say types of open source SIEMs. Commercial SIEMs means that for you to use them, you need what? You need to purchase a license, do the deployment, so on and so forth. An open source SIEM, in most cases, you're not paying any financial cost to deploy it. All you need to do is ensure that you meet the various system or software requirement they have. So if you Google for types of open source SIEMs, you'll get Allenvolt OSIEM, SIEMmonster, Wazuh, Snort, OSEC, Sagan, blah 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 blah. All of those. If you are like me, you might be wondering, now am I meant to learn all of these SIEMs? No, you're not meant to learn all of those SIEMs. Reason being, think of SIEMs as what? As a vehicle, as a car, or as a bike, or as a phone. I'll stick to vehicle. You can't drive any vehicle as long as you know how to drive. As long as you know how to shift gears, you know how to steer left, steer right, accelerate, brake, you should be more or less well. At the fundamental of how a SIEM operates is your ability to know those Windows event IDs we talked about, to know how Windows does log management, to know how Linux does log management. That is one skill. The other skill is now your correlation activity. Remember when we were searching for top IPs, searching for a user who did what, also being able to figure out how can this SIEM help me identify a top user? How can this SIEM help me know when Jen or when John logged into this particular system? Once you figure that, once you're very good at that, then it becomes very easy for you to work and pick or use any other SIEM. For this case, you're going to be using the Wazuh SIEM because one, it's open source. Two, so interesting thing, something you should know about even open source SIEMs. We have SIEMs that will be open source and they give you a limited set of features. Then those same SIEMs will also be commercial, meaning that The moment you go for the commercial equivalent, you are getting additional features. So for example, AlienVault SIEM, it is open source. AlienVault USM or AlienVault Anywhere is commercial. Let's just Google that so that we are on the same space. Anywhere. I might be wondering, how does one know all these things? It comes one with experience and just researching and being part of this field. The more you practice in the field, not necessarily as someone who's employed, by doing labs, by running into problems and trying to find solutions, the more you'll run into these solutions and you will be aware of them. Now, reason why it might be very important for you to also be aware of them is if you go to an interview, someone will ask you, name for me a list of SIEMs you are aware of. So you'll say, Wazuh, tick. Then I'll ask you, do you know any other SIEM? You ideally want to say, I know OSEC, I know AlienVault, I know SIEMmonster. Then it might be very worthwhile to say, when it comes to commercial SIEMs, I know Splunk, Logarithm, IBM Curator, ArcSight, so on and so forth. You don't necessarily need to know how to manage, operate them. Companies will pay you to teach you to know those things. But at least, if it has an open source variant, at least know how that single open source variant actually works. So back to AlienVault Anywhere. Here is AlienVault Anywhere. You can click on this, just do and have an overview of what it does, its various features, so on and so forth. So let's go back to Wazuh and just type Wazuh SIEM. Why are we doing this? For us to actually know the SIEM itself. So Wazuh open source security platform. You can install it. It has a free cloud trial. We have the various companies that are using it. We have the various features it has: endpoint security, threat intelligence, security operation, cloud security, so on and so forth. Then a few screenshots of the various things you get with Wazuh. I'm going to pause, take any questions, and ask if all of us have created an account and have been able to sign into the account. You should be able to see more or less something similar to what I'm currently showing you, unless you clicked on start your trial, which is definitely okay. So let me figure something out. No, it's not here. So if you have created your trial account, you're able to access the console. Please, on the chat, just type OK. So I'll repeat the question. If you have created your account, please chat OK. If not yet, just say not okay. Then that way I'll know whether we'll know the amount of time we are giving for everyone to basically create an account. But in the interest of actually not fairness, in the interest of we don't leave anyone behind, let me see if we can give a blanket 5 minutes for guys to create accounts, or we continue. So I see a few guys are yet to respond. So I'm going to give creating the account takes more or less 3 minutes. So 3 minutes, then we proceed. As that happens, let me also buy time. So I had a rumor. I'm not sure if it's if it's a true rumor that on Monday it's a public holiday. So you know, one thing I'm going to do in the office will be asking our HR person whether Monday is a security, whether Monday is a holiday or we should treat it as a hot air. On a related note,
Stories za jaba.
my friend, these stories are jaba. Ulisikia wapi? Ulisikia wapi?
Hii ni story ya jaba bana. Baba anasema nini?
But on a very serious note, you see, most of you, or some of you at one point, are going to become managers. You're going to lead teams. So I find myself in a position where we don't know how Monday it's going to be. It might be a peaceful event. Guys will exercise their constitutional right to picket without causing harm to property and all those things, or things might just hit the fan and all major roads in Nairobi might be closed. So if that happens, as a manager, you are looking at all scenarios. You are praying that maybe it's a holiday, but mostly you are praying that things we don't have any violence thing. It's business as usual. At the same time, you are trying to anticipate the worst case scenario. If we get a disruption and your team is working, so I run a 24/7 SOP, which means guys are always working in shifts. So I have a team of guys that are going to report 8 in the morning to what time they end? To around 4 in the evening on a Monday. So if you have riots and roads are closed, will this person be able to safely come to work and leave work? And then you have guys who will be reporting from around 4 to 12. Will they be safe to come to the office and leave the office? Then you have guys who will be reporting from 12 to 8 the next day. Will they be safe? So it might be Monday, stories are jabba, it might be a holiday, but there's a risk. There's a risk that you are one aware of it and just trying to manage it, just trying to ensure that do you want guys to really come to the office on that particular day, or do you want to monitor the situation and based on how things are, you figure out the right approach. Recall when we are talking of this, we mentioned that cyber security is all about availability, confidentiality, and integrity. That is an aspect of availability of cyber security, because you have actual human people that are monitoring those systems, that are engineers to those systems. Those people, as much as they're being paid to deliver a service, you also have to watch out over their well-being. They're all humans. There will be guys who will be definitely not comfortable leaving the safety of their houses, depending with one where you are living, depending with your maybe public or not public political affiliation, so on and so forth. So cyber security can at times be very interesting in regards to the various things it touches. Now imagine the scope of risk management someone at a bank, someone at Safaricom has to bear in mind. If the engineers can't respond to a site and something happens to that site, M-Pesa for some interesting or weird reason goes down. Well, I was going to say KPLC, but KPLC is KPLC. So someone at SAFCOM might actually be considering, can we fly our engineers from this point to point A if road transport is completely a no-go option? Or might it be better, given that our HQ is on Waiyaki Way, why don't we just hire a hotel that is close to the office? Or can actually this guy stay in the office for that duration? We'll bring in blankets, food, so on and so forth. That's one aspect of still cybersecurity that is called disaster management and business continuity planning, where you're just not looking at the technology, but you're looking beyond that. That was by the way. So I hope all of us are good. We have created an account and should be able to proceed. So disclaimer, I did this some time back, and I'm just hoping I will be able to remember the various steps I did. So we are going to click on start your trial. Let's go ahead and name our environment. Let's call it KamiLimu Cyber. You can give it any name. Then let's choose a tier or tier. Let's go with the most minimal tier, and I'll explain why. So I'm going with 100 GB. So whenever you're collecting logs, they occupy space. So this tier is basically meant to help you know how much space do you require. In most cases, most cloud-based operators will give you the ability to progressively increase your tier without suffering any downtime. But if today you don't require 4 TB, then you don't need to go with 4 TB. It's cloud because one, cloud gives you that flexibility to only pay for that resource that you need and are using. So let's go with 100 GB. Select region. Which region should we go to? I'd like to hear your thoughts on your thought process behind which region should we select. Do you want to go with Ohio State, Europe, Asia Pacific, London? Which one do we think, or do you think is the most ideal? Lorette, tunaomba jibu tafadhali, and as always, if you're not in a position to talk, just say not able to talk.
Ohio.
Why Ohio?
Came top of my head.
Okay. So Lorette has said Ohio. Let's get a gentleman. Let me see. We're only 2 gens to 3 gens. No, 3, 4. Okay. Boaz or Bruce Felix?
I would go with London.
Why London?
It's more or less closer to our timeline, and either that or Frankfurt.
Okay, because of the time thing.
Yes, so I'm thinking it will be we won't have delays or jitters when transmitting our data or something.
Okay, valid thought process. So when you're selecting the region, definitely you want a region that is closer to where your devices are. So US I think there's an ocean. I don't know if it's Pacific or which. Is it Pacific? Yes, there's an ocean between Africa and the US. So there's a distance there. You more or less want to factor that in, though with advancement in technology, we have fiber, you are definitely not going to feel that delay as far as this is concerned. Now for the guys who do forex trading, the really big shots, that distance is very key. It's very key. You want to be closer to maybe Nairobi Stock Exchange as possible, because that, I don't know, microsecond decision will help you rake in millions or lose those millions, because it's algorithms making those decisions. So for such cases, that micro of a second really counts. So there's that aspect. The other aspect also depends on data sovereignty, the GDPR regulation. So if your information is going to be stored in Ohio, laws of the land in most cases typically take what? A given priority. So if it's in Ohio and the US laws say that anyone, law enforcement in the US with the right court order can be given access to your data, then you want to factor that in. It's one reason why people will say, if our data is going to be stored in a specific country, we won't work with you. Then it's also one reason why companies like, is it Telegram or Signal, they're very keen on where their data centers are hosted. So they are hosting data centers in regions where even legally the law doesn't require them to know the decryption password if they are doing end-to-end encryption. In certain countries, the law actually requires you to be able to decrypt your customers' data when given a lawful request. So typically want to factor in certain things. In my case, I think I'll actually go for anything in Europe, because I know Kenya typically has a fiber connectivity that more or less has a straight line to Europe, last time I checked. So let's go with London. Then support type, let's go with standard, which means coverage 8 hours. Then complete your profile. Is this necessary? What is your so I think the rest teaching, let's fill them based on your what? There's a term. Fill them based on your own personal assessment, on your own judgment call. Make a judgment call and fill what you are required to fill. Lawrence 00. Select country Kenya, company not applicable. Now what is pending here? Okay, 07. Yeah, I know this is bad practice. Might be good practice also. Then everything looks okay, and now I can view my summary, and go ahead and create. Sorry, is there anyone else who can't hear me? I see Betty says they are unable to hear me. Okay, I think guys can hear me. So should be okay. Let's give it some time for it to finalize creation. As we wait for that to happen, feel free to ask any questions, seek clarifications. Beckley, I hope you're able to hear me now.
I left at choosing region.
Also, let me basically repeat that. Although Beckley, I think your audio is also not the best. There's a lot of static on your end. So essentially, as far as region is concerned, I was just sharing a few considerations you need to put in when choosing region. So applicable laws as far as data management is concerned, as far as privacy is concerned. Then you also want to factor in things like latencies. Though I said as far as latency is concerned, with the current advancement in technologies, especially from a networking point of view, with fiber, latency nowadays is not really a very big issue, especially when you're just setting up a SIEM. So I hope that sheds some clarity. Now, who decides on region? Who decides on storage and all that? So those things will be typically be decided by either the solution architect or the manager who's responsible for this. So these are a whole different process where you're actually researching. If we are going to choose Ohio, from a legal point of view, what are the rules? What do the rules look like? From a privacy point of view, what are we working with? Now the beauty here is if you are working with a vendor, in this case Wazuh, you can actually come up with those concerns and ask Wazuh, I have concerns about data privacy. If I choose this specific region, what data privacy safeguards are you going to assure me? And in most cases, vendors might hate you just tiny, like kidogo too, because you don't like being asked those questions. But 99% of the time, they will actually answer you and give you a factual answer in regards to any of the concerns that you will have raised with them. So as the creating happens, let's move on to the next stage of we have Wazuh, it's installed in a cloud. How will it be able to receive my agents? So how will it be able to receive logs from my virtual machine to Wazuh itself? How does that happen? Do we say abracadabra, or do we say piki piki ponki, or my favorite one? I think I've forgotten it. During that IBC case, there was a lawyer who was saying, who had a very interesting variant of piki piki ponki. Anyway, how do we ship our logs from your endpoint, which you want to monitor, to a SIEM solution? In this case, Wazuh. Anyone with an idea of how that happens, anyone with a speculation, in regards to how that happens. The mic and floor is all yours.
Pardon?
So Simanto, the question is, how do we move logs from your machine to a SIEM like Wazuh? Make sense? Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear.
You want to attempt?
Not yet, just a second.
No worries. Any other brave and courageous takers? So Felix and Bruce Felix, James, you guys want to give it an attempt?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So the question was, how do we get logs from your machine that we want to monitor to a tool like Wazuh?
Are we allowed to Google?
Of course, always.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, Bruce Felix, if I'd said no, what would have been your response?
I would have thought of something either way.
I still just think of something as you Google. But it's okay not to put you on the spot.
No problem.
Anyone else wants to give it a shot?
Yes.
Now that we can say,
Bethel, is
when
that
we,
you?
yes. Can I be heard now?
Better, but there's I don't know, static noise or background noise from your end.
Sorry about that. Can you still hear me well?
I think we'll work with what we have. Please proceed.
Yes. I'm saying sorry for taking you back.
No worries.
I left after you chose the location as Europe.
Yes.
Wondering what you guys did next.
So
From there, I'm a bit lost.
you choose the location, then just below the location, you are going to be asked for, I think, some contact details.
Yes.
So input
And
some.
the support type?
Pardon? A
Support
support
type.
standard.
Then my profile details.
Yes.
Website, if you might not have.
And if you don't have website, you don't need to put it.
Alright. Then what is your case? You guys fill that part as well?
Yes, I think in my case I used teaching.
And is that all?
Yes, then at the bottom there's a button, I think it says view summary, that should be active. You should be able to click on it.
Did you guys put any specific company or just any?
Yeah, any should be okay. I think I used KamiLimu.
Alright. Thank you.
So it should bring you somewhere around here. You won't have ready, in which case I'm not sure which button you'll have, start or something,
I had this then
or create your instance. Yeah, so just click on create your instance. Give it maybe 2-3 minutes, click refresh, and it should turn into ready. Let me know if you're okay now, Beckley. At least if the instance has changed to creating.
And protection absolutely.
As Berkeley catches up, for the rest of us, are we on the? Are you seeing something similar to this? If yes, kama kawaida, type yes. Very good, very good, very good, very good. Sawa sawa. So now let's figure out. So open Wazuh. You want to click on open Wazuh. By the way, if I'm slowing you down, please, in most cases the SIEMs are typically self-explanatory. Just click on a few things here. As long as you don't cancel your environment, I think everything else is okay. So we open Wazuh. It will ask for credentials. We go to default credentials. Username is Wazuh admin. Let me copy that. Paste it there. Here is the password. I copy that, paste it there, and we log in. Now you can say I'm in, almost in, and we give it time. Okay. We are making some headway. So I'm going to pause, take a 1-minute break. I'm going to pause 10 minutes. Why 10 minutes? To enable a few of us who are still catching up to catch up with us, so that we are not leaving anyone behind. For the guys over already here, to give you time to just click around, have a feel of what is there. If you are curious, scratch that curiosity bug. Then we resume at, should be 7 minutes past 7. So let me put a timer. Okay, so we have more or less 9 minutes. So please feel the platform, play around with it. Wazuh has an amazing technical blog. Right here we talked about it. So you can click on install Wazuh, and you'll see a lot of documentation. I think there's documentation here. If you still come to Wazuh right here, that instance, if you click on agent, it will also show you the a few things you need to do. So do not limit your curiosity. So we reconnect in 9 minutes. I'll just mute myself and stretch a bit. Thank you, and see you in 9.
Okay. So this is it. Ah,
Yeah, yes, the timer refused to run. But either way, I think our time is done. So let's go back to the Wazuh page. Okay, here we are. Who is not at this page? If you're not on this page, just say me, so that we give you slightly more time. Okay. Going once, twice, we seem to be doing okay. So how to proceed? So what you're seeing in front of your screen is what we'll call the default, or what everyone will say, the default dashboard. So the moment you load Wazuh, the default dashboard gives you this grouped dashboard. That one has a security information management. This tab here will give you security events. So security events will be all the events coming from your machine. If you log in, if you restart your service, both Windows and Linux, those events will be under security events. Then we have integrity monitoring. These will be events around, see, as the name suggested, alerts related to file changes, including permission, content, and ownership attributes. So if Wazuh is monitoring that specific folder, you add a file to it, you remove a file from it, security monitoring will get those events. Then moving on from security information management, we can go to detection response. Vulnerabilities. Wazuh can discover vulnerabilities for you. It can also help you with the MITRE attack framework. Now this is definitely a new term. I won't want to bombard you with it. So let's Google what is MITRE attack. It's actually a very amazing framework that in the last session we'll be covering. So let's not digress. So please create some time and just go through the MITRE attack, what it does, just do an overview of it, then we'll do this practically later on. I'll put the link in the chat. But essentially what MITRE does for you is MITRE is a curated list of knowledge. MITRE, the company, has broken down all the steps that an attacker will typically go through when they're attacking you. So most cases they are starting with initial access, then they'll go to execution, then they'll go to persistence, privilege escalation, so on and so forth. So one MITRE curates that for you. Then under each curation, it gives you techniques. So we have tactics. Tactics are the initial access, execution. Then under each tactic, it gives you technique. So for example, right here, initial access, we see it has 9 techniques: drive by compromise, exploit public facing applications, so on and so forth. Now the value of MITRE is, in addition to curating all of these, if you go under anything in MITRE, that anything in this case, this technique, which is drive by compromise, has an ID T1189. And the beauty of this is, when you're communicating with other professionals, you'll tell them that, look, we were compromised and the initial attack vector was a drive by compromise. Then you tell them drive by compromise, and you share the threat, the whatever, the technique ID. So even in my reports, you'll see that I'll say drive by compromise, and I'll have something like T1189. So the moment you see T1189, then definitely you know we are talking of a drive by compromise. So that's what basically MITRE helps standardize a lot of those things. We all know that KA, Kenya Aviation, I think, Authority was compromised. If you do that investigation, the report you get should be able to, if the report you give someone infuses MITRE, so you have done your research and you figure out for KAA, initial access was through what? Valid accounts. Actually, let's do a sample, because we never know tomorrow. So initial access, we are trying to figure out how was KA compromised. We have gone through your logs on Wazuh, and we realized that we picked up someone who logged into their public facing website using a valid account. We'll go to MITRE, we go through initial access. Okay, it was not drive by compromise. We do our analysis, we figure out one, it was via valid account. Click on valid account as the technique. We see that valid account has 4 sub-techniques. Sub-techniques basically means the technique is too general, but under that technique we have very specific other techniques. Those other techniques are sub-techniques. So you can read through the explanation to basically have a good understanding. Going back to our thought process, so we realized that it was valid accounts. Then under sub-techniques, we figure out like, crap, guys, our procedure are very clear. Do not use default attacks, because, sorry, do not use default accounts. If you'd used if you'd changed your default accounts, we will have not been compromised. Ransomware will have not been there. Medusa will have been something we just see on the news, on Twitter, but not something that you have to live, breathe every day. And at that point, you have realized that the technique that was used to compromise you was a valid account. So in that case, when you're sharing, you say, okay, we have realized that initial access was via what? Was via a drive. Oh no, this is not drive by compromise. Initial access was via valid account, which is technique 1078, and the specific sub-technique was a 1078.0.0.1 default account. Then you explain the CRM system or the ticketing system was publicly accessible, and it was still using the default username, which was admin, and it was still using the default password, which was a password. That was how the attacker was able to get in. What MITRE has done for you is it has helped you standardize these key indicators of compromise you are going to communicate, specifically the tactic and techniques. More or less, that's how we use MITRE. I'm hoping in the subsequent section we'll be able to even do a practical use case. Let's go back. Any questions on MITRE as I try to figure out my credentials?
Yes, Lawrence.
Please proceed.
Does MITRE also have like famous attacks? Like does it store like a database of famous I don't know, hackers or something, and what techniques and how they use? Yes, like that. I don't.
Yeah, so on MITRE we have groups. Now the thing with MITRE, once you work with it for quite some time, you realize that it's not always up to date, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So for example, so groups are basically famous attacks or APTs. So we can go, I'll be surprised if we have even Medusa here. Let's see if there's anything that comes. Okay, so for me some of these are very familiar. Let's go with the Hafnium or Lazar. Okay, let me pick just anything. Okay, let's go with the Sandworm team. So if you pick on Sandworm team, MITRE will tell you, okay, Sandworm team is a destructive threat group that has been attributed to the Russia General Staff, blah blah blah. So yes, you can find more information about it. As always, you have the ID. MITRE will give you associated group description. Then now it gives you the techniques that this specific group uses. So we can see that this group uses account discovery, domain account. No, more or less MITRE does a very good rundown of modus operandi of this particular group. It will give you the softwares they use, additional reference materials, and MITRE will also give you these mitigations, which basically tell you for this attack, maybe this is what you want to do to ensure you're able to detect it or you're able to stop it. Make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. So KamiLimu will do this, maybe I'll do this, I'm not sure. When you guys write your CV, you are looking for internship. MITRE is a buzzword. As much as it's a very good product, as someone working in a SOC, I want to see that you actually know MITRE. So saying amongst your skill, are proficient in MITRE attack framework. Very tick, very good. This is someone proactive, someone who anajituma, someone who sends themselves, someone who is very proactive, researching, knowledgeable with current happenings and trend in the community. Also saying knowledgeable in SIEM technology, e.g. Wazuh. Then you can also just throw in Splunk, throw in SIEMs that have trial periods, and ensure as much as you're throwing them in, you're also spending time to more or less figure out how that SIEM works. Depending on the role I'm hiring for, in most cases, if any one of you was to send an application, my assumption will be they're looking for entry level or internship. At that specific stage, personally, I think I'm more or less doing a good representation of what other hiring managers go through. Junior, entry level, internship role, we are looking at how well informed you are. I'm not necessarily trying to see if you're an expert with MITRE, an expert with Wazuh, with Splunk. I just need to know that if I talk of MITRE, at least you know what MITRE does. If I talk of a SIEM, you know what a SIEM does. If I talk of Sysmon, you know what Sysmon. You have heard of Sysmon, which means I'm not going to spend a lot of time training you on these technologies, telling you, okay, by the way, there's something called Sysmon. I'll spend time telling you, helping you figure out what does Sysmon do, making you better at Sysmon, and not introducing you to Sysmon. Hope that makes sense. Let's go back to Wazuh. Let's go back to credentials. Friend, reload. Credentials should be here. I recall during the IBC case, If I was that guy, I'll be screaming password. So password should be here. So Wazuh admin, paste it, login. Yeah, fun fact as we wait for Wazuh to load. Recommendation, most browsers right now, if you give it the right permission, I know Chrome does it, Firefox does it, it's able to check whether any of your passwords have been linked to a breach. So for example, if this was a production system and I have Wazuh admin as my username and I have the password as I love Wazuh, Chrome is able to tell me that, hey, this password I love Wazuh is in a breach somewhere else. Please change it. But I think I had to give it permission for it to query that for me. Might be wondering, Lawrence, why are you saving your passwords in Chrome? So currently, most of these browsers come with a password manager. As long as your password manager is protected with a master password, more or less you should be okay. Is protected with a master password means that if you try to access my password, Windows will prompt you to authenticate. Then you do that. Then Chrome or Firefox will now also need you to input my password manager, password. That was by the way. Remaining minutes. Damn, muda unakimbia. I will spend time just trying to ship logs from where? From our virtual machine to Wazuh. And let me see. Let me illustrate that, how this happens. So in most systems, if you are going to work with any SIEM for that matter, this is how your architecture will look like. So you'll have your SIEM here. Forgive my writing. Then let's go with in honor of International Women's Day and the amazing ladies we have in the group doing great work, let's go with color pink. Guys, don't laugh at me if this is not pink. So you'll have your SIEM at the top, then you have the servers, workstations, whatever you want to monitor. So let's call this one. Then you'll have something here, 2. So 1 might be a Linux machine, 2 might be a Windows machine, 3 might be your network device. The first thing to ensure is 1, 2, and 3 can communicate with the SIEM. You need to ensure that there is a network connectivity between the servers you want to monitor and the SIEM. Now each SIEM will have requirements. So something like 1, you need to ensure you can ping this SIEM IP. You need to ensure that specific ports are also open. If you look at how Wazuh works, Wazuh needs port what? Port 14, 1514, 1514 and 1515, if I'm not wrong, to be open. Otherwise connection won't happen. So you need to ensure that from a network point of view that is correct. So definitely network connection must exist. Once you're done with that, most SIEMs will have an agent, a piece of software that you need to install on your machine. Now this software or this agent will be responsible for reading your Windows event IDs, your Windows event logs. It will be responsible for reading your Linux auth, syslog or secure logs. It will be responsible for identifying those event IDs, for identifying those username, collecting all that information and shipping them to the SIEM. So inside here, we'll install an agent, we'll install an agent, we'll install also an agent. This agent more or less will be reading logs. We'll read logs, read logs, read logs, read logs, read logs, logs, and once it reads those logs, it will use this communication we have to ship those logs to the SIEM. You might be asked, now given that you're using a network, what happens when you don't have a network connectivity? Most agents nowadays are smart enough. They will realize that the communication to the SIEM has been cut off. And what they'll do is they will buffer. Instead of sending logs to the SIEM in real time, they will store those logs within their own folders architecture and start periodically doing a health check on the SIEM. Are you alive? Are you reachable? Are you alive? Are you reachable? The moment the SIEM is reachable, then they'll start clearing their buffers. They'll start sending all those logs that they stored previously, just to ensure that you're not losing any information. Sorry. Another question that I'll ask you, well, if I'm interviewing you, how does the SIEM assume now the agent is able to receive the logs to establish reconnection with the SIEM? When the SIEM be confused, how does the SIEM know that this was the first event, this was the last event, so on and so forth? Recall we talked of timestamp. So all those logs are going to go with a timestamp, so that when the SIEM receives this event, it is able to sort everything in order. It will know that, okay, this was the first event, it needs to be this location. This was the last event, it needs to be in this particular location, so on and so forth. So essentially, that's how agents work. If you do a deep dive into agents, agents will come with different configuration options. You can tell the agent which log file you want to monitor, what you don't want to monitor. Remember, we talked of storage. So agents allow you to say, I only want you to monitor login events. Don't monitor anything else. I only want you to monitor Apache logs. Don't monitor anything else. This will help with you saving some storage here and there, especially when now you're working with thousands and thousands of servers. Then lastly, each agent will be based on the distribution you have. So for Windows, you will get your executable file. For Linux, you will get a dpkg file. You'll basically get a file that is in line or aligns with your whichever operating system you're going to work with. So we are going to proceed and click on Add Agent. So we are asked which operating system, blah blah blah. For a sec, let's start with actually good question. Start with whichever VM you have. So I'll say let's start with Linux. So if you have Kali Ubuntu, you are going with Debian Ubuntu. If you have CentOS, you are going with CentOS. So I'm going to fire up my Ubuntu server so that I can actually showcase how this is going to happen. So I'll just go ahead and say select Ubuntu.
Hi, Lawrence.
Yes, please.
Is the session being recorded?
Yes, you made my heart skip a bit. Yes, it's being
Okay,
recorded.
thank you.
So you have selected Debian Ubuntu. You need to select your architecture. In most cases, you'll be working with the 64 architecture. So I'll select that. Let me check my Ubuntu machine is running. It is running. I will be accessing it via SSH. Give me a minute to load the right profile. So guys, if anyone feels I'm moving slightly fast, please let me know. Let me know. Okay, should be golden. We are good. Okay, so let me put this guy to the corner here. Okay, so Ubuntu, we have selected the right architecture. Select the agent to group. We'll go with the default one. So assign the agent to a group basically allows you to group agents. So for example, you might want an agent that is you might want a group for Linux machines, you might want a group for Windows machines, you might want groups based on criticality, so maybe critical assets, not critical assets. You might want to group based on whether those assets are reachable, they have a public IP or they have a private IP. So I select default, then install and enroll the agent. You can use this command to install blah blah blah. Okay, I see there's a password here. Let me not show the password, so I'll copy the command. I'm not showing the password because we are recording this session and I don't want someone abusing the access I have. So we have copied this command, which means now if I paste this command on my terminal, I should be able to do the installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to become a root user. I hope I remember the password. Yes, I remember the password. Then just paste that particular command. Let's break this command down. And while breaking it down, be very cautious whenever you are copying commands just from the internet. At times, guys will compromise you by sharing commands that actually have malicious intent. And this is me shooting myself in the foot again. Like I was like, don't show the password, and here I'm showing it. Hackers, don't hack me, please. Like, I'm just doing this mentorship, have mercy on me. So anyway, we have curl. A curl is used to, it's a terminal command that you can use to access the internet. So instead of loading a browser, you can actually use curl to query anything on the internet. Let's show an example. Let me confirm I have access to the internet. I do. So I can say curl google.com, and curl will basically load the google.com page on the terminal, giving me the raw HTML. So at times this is desirable, especially if you're downloading files. You don't really need to see the page itself. You're more interested in the command itself. You're more interested in what you're downloading. So there you go. So we are calling, I believe the switch O will write. So whatever we are querying, we are going to write it into this particular file here. So we are specifying the file name that you are going to write on disk. Then we are giving cal the URL where it needs to download whatever it's going to download. So this is the URL. So more or less you are downloading this file here. Then when you are writing it down on disk, we are renaming it into this file, into this name. Then once you have done our cal here, we are going to run a sudo command and sudo command. So this sudo command will only run if this cal was successful. That's why we have this double and sign. Logic operations. So we download, then we run sudo. In my case, sudo is not necessary because I'm already root. Then we are setting up a variable Wazuh manager and giving it this value, which is the URL to our Wazuh instance. We are setting up Wazuh registration password and assigning it this variable. Then Wazuh agent group, assigning it this variable. Then lastly, we are using dpkg switch I to install the file we just downloaded. So more or less that's what the command does. I'll hit enter. It might or might not give us output. So for each one of you, your command will be more or less slightly different. Now, why are we, for example, doing these operations? Setting up a variable Wazuh manager, Wazuh registration password, so on and so forth. All of these is basically meant to automate our operation. One command to rule them all. One command to download Wazuh and set up Wazuh with a minimal interaction from you. Why is this important? So when you're pushing out agents on a large scale, you want to automate as much as possible. You don't want to be in a case where you are manually going and click to install. At times you'll be in a situation where you can't physically access my machine and you need to send to me a file for me just to download and download and install. So automation, being able to put everything in a single command helps you with this. We could have done this manually, in which case what we'll have done will have been, we figure out where the Wazuh agent is, we download the agent. After we have downloaded the agent, we do the installation. And when you're installing the agent will ask you for what? It will ask you for the Wazuh server IP, we give it manually. Registration password we give you manually. Agent group manually. It takes too much time. So automation allows us to do that. Installation is complete. Then we'll go to the last step and just start the service. So copy everything, come to Wazuh, paste everything, and the system more or less will take care of running the commands individually. So it has run the first command, system daemon reload. This command is used when you install a new service and you basically want your operating system to be aware of this new service. We installed the Wazuh agent service, so yes, we wanted the operating system to be aware of it. Then we enable the service. Enabling the service means that even if you restart this machine, the Wazuh agent will always start automatically. At times, not all services you install will always start automatically. You need to specifically enable them. Then once that is done, now we need to start the service. So that's what the last command does. Just press enter. And once you have pressed enter, we have no error, then the service has technically started. Now, I believe you have gone through the process of starting and stopping services previously. It's something that we can easily guess. Oh, Google, I would like someone to share with me a command that we can use to actually ascertain whether the Wazuh agent is actually running. So command to basically check whether the service is running. If you have the command, please just post it on chat. I'll take a pause and wait for that command to be shared. Anyone? It's almost quitting time. It's almost quitting time. Ted is here with us today. Ted is taking notes, saying active people. Ted, stop being unfair. You do this on day-to-day basis, my friend. Stop cheating.
I'm helping my mentees to learn as they move.
The peer mentor has come to the rescue. So yes, the command to use was a system STL status. And if you run it, what you are looking for is active running. For anyone who needs a reminder, for almost all services in Linux, if you want to stop a service, system STL stop, then the service name. If you want to start it, just start. If you want to check whether it's stopped or running, status. I'll take a pause. Anyone who's not following along, please eka tu mikono juu and type me. Or anyone who needs more time, please, you don't have to type me, but I need a way of knowing whether I need to give guys I know a better question. Do we need more time? Maybe an additional 5 minutes? If we do, type yes. I don't see any yeses. Bruce Felix, digestion is never meant to happen immediately. So even the stomach takes like what, 6 hours for it to digest. But I'm guessing our 6 hours will be 5 minutes, so so I'll give guys let's do the timer thing. 5 minutes to put the loaf in front of some tea. Meanwhile, I'll take any questions or clarification. Ted, just to preempt you, I think after this, you definitely have more experience than me when it comes to the use case, the ideation. So we'll probably be wrapping up in the next few minutes. I would like you just to spend some time to share with the mentees expectations. Then from there, I'll know how to quickly jump in and also share my thoughts on that.
That is okay.
Hiya. Okay. So we have confirmed our Wazuh agent is running, and now if we come back to agent, so if you go back to your Wazuh, probably this is the page you will be seeing. What you want to do is you want to click on this drop down menu right here and click on agents as my side loads. So as admin, my Wazuh password is password 123 for all the hackers out there in the world who want to compromise me. It's okay. Can I keep sharing my password here? So what's the need? Okay, so log in. So if you log in again, it's probably going to take you to overview, and you should see that you have one agent connected, one active. If you had multiple agents, we'll be seeing a different something there. So if you want to see your list of agents, click on this drop down menu here. You can go to agents, then we will be able to see your agent here. Connection is active. We can see last registration date. You can basically, it's self-leading, you're able to pick a few information from there. Now let's go to the flesh of things. Let's go to events. So you want to see the events, right? You want to click on this drop down menu here. You want to go to modules, then you want to go to security events. From security events, more or less, you will start, the moment that agent was connected, it started picking logs in real time. Now this answers some of the question that was raised previously. What happens when the attacker deletes logs? It's perfectly okay. The moment that logging activity happened, that agent we installed picked it up immediately and shipped it out to Wazuh. So that's one way of addressing this. So when you click on security events, you will see the dashboard. Right now the dashboard won't be populated because you've just started, but feel free to hover around, see what you're able to pick from there. I'll go to events. Then from events, this is where the meat of things are. So give it some time to load. Then now I'm able to start seeing events. So for a start, they might not make sense to you, which is perfectly okay. Don't let that stress you out. The thing you need to be aware of is you can search for these events by using this search bar here. So for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a user into this server. So I'll say user add hacker. I've added a user hacker. If we use the previous skills we learned, I can grep for hacker and search in my logs. Given that I created a user hacker, this will probably be under syslog. Oh, it's not under syslog. Secure. Let me see what logs are here. So it's not under syslog. Maybe auth. Yes, I see it's under authentication. New group, new user added. As I mentioned, if I wasn't sure, I would have done IR, switch IR, and just looked for hacker. And I would have been told that one, the file matched something under journal, and auth.log also had this entry hacker. That's one way I can do it. The other way would have was just coming to the SIEM and searching for hacker. And we see, okay, do you have any logs around hacker? So I entered hacker here, pressed enter. If you see at the top here, it was searching. And now I have hits. I'm told that I have 2 hits. I'm given the agent name, where these logs are coming from, role description, new user added to the system, agent name, so on and so forth. If I want to find more about this particular event, I click on this, I expand this field, click here, and I'll be able to see more fields. So this is probably the last thing you're going to do. So 1 minute on your Linux VMs, just type the command user add hacker, as root, or use sudo, then come to Wazuh and just search for hacker. So 1 minute, it's quitting time. I don't want to keep us here more. I know a few guys here might not be very happy. Sultan is just wrapping up if you watch Citizen. Then I know there's that Mariana thing that is about to start. I'm not saying I'm watching them. I'm just saying that as a manager, you need to be informed. You need to be aware of current happenings in the society, so that you can factor that in as when you're doing risk management. Hey, why are you laughing? Yeah, definitely, you should not be judging. Same way I don't judge people when Ted tells me, you know, JJ, or what's this other guy's name? Or someone else did, I don't know what. I'm like, no, it's okay. That's why even KamiLimu is very specific, work-life balance. Guys, it's research. Anyway, so I hope all of us hopefully have reached this particular stage. So to identify more information, you can click on any of these events, then just scroll down and try to make sense of what you're seeing. Bruce Felix can't find yours, so one thing to add here is the name you put here has to be Wazuh. Can be very case sensitive. There are ways to go about that to remove that case sensitivity, but it's just something you need to be aware of. Then second thing, you need to ensure that your agent is actually active. If you click on explore agent here, top left, you need to be able to see your agent. It needs to be active. If it's not active, it means that the SIEM is not able to see your agent and it can't collect logs from that. It can't receive logs from that agent. Bruce Felix, I hope that helps.
I've done what you've said.
Is your agent active?
Yes, and the total number of logs that have been pushed hasn't changed from the time that I created I installed Wazuh in my virtual machine.
Interesting. Have you tried to refresh your page?
Yes, a couple of times, but let me do it again.
What might be happening? And you're sure your agent is active?
Yes, I've checked.
Okay, then I think that's something we can troubleshoot maybe in a subsequent session. It might be a network thing, but more or less
maybe
your logs you should be able to receive your logs. So just a few things I wanted to mention was when you work with SIEMS, you see all the fields on my right: index name, ID, agent IP, agent name, so on and so forth. Those events will be derived from the log file, and this is what will vary across different SIEMs. So for example, let's look for the user hacker. User hacker, yes, here we go. The user hacker is under the field data.dst user hacker. Splunk might have this as a created user hacker. So you need to be aware of those differences, but as I mentioned, those differences, you pick them up as you learn the platform. The important thing is knowing that If I'm searching for a term, I can search for hacker, then I will be able to identify which field hacker is tied to, so that later on, if I'm very sure the field I'm looking for is data DST user, you can copy that field, bring it to your search menu, and say, I want you're basically telling the SIEM, I want you, the SIEM, to search for the term hacker in this specific field. So that will be data.dst. I think it's typically full colons, then you say hacker, and you search. And now if you search it using this way, then now we only get one field with the information you require. Now, how are you going to master this? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. All those available fields are marked on the right here. So the more you do investigation, the more you figure out how to utilize them and how they work. It's not something you learn in a week. It's not something you learn in a month. Ted can share. I think when you have sessions with him, he can share his experience. It takes some time, but the more you practice, the more you become good at this. So to wrap this up, if you fail to install, or if you're having issues with the installation, try to rewatch the video, try to figure out what went wrong, what you might have missed, or try to set this up afresh again, or try to set it up in a different box. We have worked on Linux. What I will want you guys to do is try to install the agent on a Windows box now. Agent, then you'll go to, where are we going to? So agent, I think it's manage. Is it management really? No. Yes, agent, then deploy new agent, then now we'll select Windows. Same process, we'll go with default. We'll be given the commands to execute using PowerShell. So basically copy this, run it on your Windows machine. Once installation is done, copy this to start the service, then come check your agent, and you'll have your agent file here. You'll be able to pick events. Try to create a user, try to do login, log out, and see whether you can use the event IDs for user login, service creation, account creation, etc., to do some form of investigation. So I know the last session was more or less meant to be about offensive security. I'll try to figure out how we are going to balance that out, because I also know we have not tackled the network traffic analysis aspect. So try to come up with a way to ensure we are able to cover that. Then with that, I would like to stop my recording, pick questions from the team as I hand this back to, or as I let Ted just come in and share his insights as far as the innovation project is concerned, and also the case study is concerned.